Speak, Lord, for your servants are listening. Amen. Wrestling is such a good spiritual metaphor.
It is.
I've had one of those weeks where it seems like everything I have tried to do has turned into a wrestling match. I have found myself saying over and over, if this isn't working out the way I want it to, then I'll just force it. There's a lot of grunting and groaning in wrestling matches. Sometimes that's a really appropriate description of the life of the Spirit as well. For all of that, though, I don't know if I would be bold enough to wrestle an angel. Jacob has no such hesitation, however, as we see in our lesson from Genesis today. I find this encounter very un-Jacob-like, actually. Think about it. Jacob spends the majority of his life avoiding confrontation, achieving his ends through subterfuge and intrigue. Since he was a little boy, his mother, Rebecca, has trained him in the art of manipulating people. He's never been as physically strong as his twin brother, Esau, and so Rebecca has taught him to win with words, to sneak through life, building things to his own advantage behind the scenes. But here on the banks of the Jabbok River, at last, Jacob cannot run anymore. He was running from the land of his father-in-law, Laban, because his brothers-in-law were jealous of his material success. But as he fled the lands of Laban to return to his homeland, he ran the risk of encountering his twin Esau, whom he had cheated and betrayed when he stole his brother's birthright. He has concocted an elaborate scheme where he sends 3 delegations of gift givers ahead of him to Esau to appease him, doing everything he can to avoid a threatening confrontation. But here, the night before the gift givers set out, and the encounter with Esau will begin, for good or for ill, Jacob passes what may be the most honest night of his life. He sends the entire family on across the river without him and remains on the near side. There he encounters a man. And the story doesn't say who starts it, but they begin to fight, physically fight, and they wrestle all night long. The stranger can hold his own with Jacob, but he can't win. And he tries to end the fight because day is breaking. Jacob, of course, isn't going to let anything end without guaranteeing his own best interests are seen to. And he refuses to let go unless the stranger blesses him. He ends up walking away with a dislocated hip and a new name, Israel, according to the stranger, because you have striven with God and with humans and have prevailed. Little old scaredy pants Jacob, who is so scared of his brother Esau after 30 years apart that he buffers himself from his twin with thousands of dollars worth of cattle and riches. Scaredy pants Jacob has striven with God and with humans and have prevailed. I like this story because it shows that someone even as seemingly weak and cowardly as Jacob can, in a moment of spiritual trial, find a great store of courage within himself and act with straightforward strength. I think we as humans are all too prone to behave toward God the way Jacob behaves toward Esau. We're terrified that God blames us for whatever mistakes and wrongdoing we have committed, and spend a great deal of time trying to appease God. Some of us may really fear that God is angry at us. Some of us may simply feel ashamed and unworthy to approach God's goodness. But few of us feel like we can just cruise on into the presence of God, put our feet up. We approach the throne of grace with caution rather than confidence. But what actually happens the day after the night of fighting with the stranger, when Jacob and Esau finally meet again? Jacob bows 7 times before Esau, expressing abject humility and fear. And what does Esau do? He runs to meet Jacob and embraces him, falls on his neck and kisses him, and weeps. Esau spends the next little while telling Jacob over and over, "It's okay. I don't need this money, these cattle, these gifts. I'm just happy to see you again. I love you." If Esau, frail and flawed human that he was, could meet the return of his brother with such grace and joy, why would God be any less? You can almost feel Esau's pain at his brother's fear. They shared the womb. And now they're so far apart, Jacob thinks he can't even pass through Esau's lands without appeasing him with gifts. Seeing his normally bold and unrepentant brother reduced to a groveling supplicant clearly grates on Esau, and it hurts him because it shows how little faith Jacob has in Esau not to kill him. How do you think God feels when we behave in the same way? Do you not think that it hurts God to see us approach with fearful and groveling spirits? It is a shallow faith that speaks words of fidelity to God, but feels compelled to hedge the bets by racking up good deeds to show off to God. How would you feel if your child was afraid to come to you without appeasing you with gifts and good deeds? I think that would be very painful indeed. And I know we don't want to hurt God that way. God knows that Jacob is trapped by fear, that he's never going to come to God honestly on his own. So God sends the angel and forces the issue. When the angel comes, Jacob doesn't have time to create an elaborate store of gifts for this encounter. He's suddenly fighting for his life, and all the riches in the world won't help him now. I think God sent the angel to help Jacob learn that he had worth and strength all by himself, regardless of the mistakes he had made or the wealth he had accumulated. I don't know that Jacob really learned the lesson. He went on with the gift giving to Esau the next day. But Jacob still had one honest night with God, fighting with God and still receiving a blessing. And nothing could change that. So my prayer for us today is that God sends us fighting angels. I don't think we can think our way out of being afraid to approach God as sinners. I think it's a natural tendency to want to approach the greatness of God with something to show we've been making an effort, whether it's a list of good deeds or a prayer book full of pretty words. So it's up to God to send us a confrontational angelic host, ready to get up in our business and help us confront God honestly and without affected virtue, whether we want to or not. It seems like sometimes what our spiritual life needs the most is a good wrestling match. Jacob came away limping, but with a blessing and a new name. May God grant us the same. Amen.